Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zephy here, and I am back at it again to drop to you all yet another banger of a what if. This being, what if Deku was Frieza's reincarnation? Now, the image for the video that I am using is from a very great content creator which focuses on primarily Dragon Ball Z content, Dragon Ball Z what ifs. Now Salad, if you do end up seeing this video or any of your followers are like, yo, he's using your art unfairly, or you feel as if you want me to take down the art for the video and you're just like, yeah bro, you're not going to use it, I will be happy to take it down. In case you do come across the video and you're just like, yo, I don't want you to use my art, I will be, happy to take it down for you and choose a different thumbnail. But if you're cool with it and you don't end up seeing this, then I don't know. So it's like, yeah. Anyways, that being said though, guys, I do hope you guys go on to enjoy today's video, seeing as it's going to be a little bit of my unscripted one. I'm just going to be going completely off the top. No real scripting will be going on in this version. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we start our story off in the world of Dragon Ball Super. Now, if many of you guys do remember, the story of Dragon Ball and Resurrection F was a little bit along the lines of Frieza's minions basically gathered up the Dragon Balls on Earth and ended up wishing Frieza back. Now, I asked the question of what would have happened had his minions worded or, phrased their wish in the wrong way. I honestly cannot be bothered to think of what the phrase would be or how they would mess it up, but you guys can basically think about that with your own interpretations. That being said, essentially the premise of the story is that they're gonna make a bad wish, and that wish is basically going to have Shenron be like, oh, so you want him to come back? I say less, I'm gonna make him come back, but not in our world, absolutely not. And he would basically proceeded, like, his eyes would glow red as he would say, your wish has been granted, as it's at this point that far away in a different universe, far different than the one that they live in. In the world of My Hero Academia, a baby has just been born with purple hair, purple eyes, and he would be Frieza's reincarnation. Immediately upon seeing him, Inko would just be smiling and Hisashi would be like, yo, what's going on? Inko would be like, look, it's our kid. And it's at this point that Hisashi would be like, nah. See, I don't have purple hair. What's going on here, Inko? Inko would be like, what are you talking about, Hisashi? As the quirk doctor would come, and then he would be like, oh, don't worry about that. It's probably just due to his quirk. A lot of babies have, have tended to look a little different than their parents due to the, the quirk civilization that we live in nowadays. A lot of times your child may not even look like you, but if you need reassurance, we can always do a DNA test. As Hisashi would look at the doctor, would say, yeah, I'd appreciate that. As Inko would give him the stare of, yo, you better stop playing with me. Inko would be like, bitch, who the hell? As Hisashi would just look at her and he would get his test. It would basically tell him that, yeah, that's his son, all right. And this is when Deku would basically proceed to, after seeing this whole little encounter, he would just start crying out of nowhere. As this is when the entire hospital would begin to shake. A thunderous aura could be felt coming from Deku, as it's at this point that the doctors would say, take him outside, as immediately a pro hero would arrive who has the ability to fly. He would grab Deku and he would take him outside, as Deku would continue crying, and this would cause earthquakes on the ground, as it's at this point that Deku would have a purple aura rising around him. As yeah, many of you guys might be thinking, yo dude, isn't this too overpowered? It's Frieza's reincarnation. Frieza never had to work for his power. It just came to him naturally. So let me ask you a question. Do you really think I'm about to make Deku weak for the sake of a story? Absolutely not. Deku would start rampaging, and this would lead to earthquakes going on, as pro heroes would basically be tasked with trying to calm Deku down. And this is when Inko would make it to the scene, as she would begin to cradle Deku, and Deku would then finally start calming down. This is when a pro hero agency would arrive, and they would basically proceed to, well, be like, yo, your kid is way too powerful. He needs to train whatever quirk that is. If it's not kept under check, the government will be forced to take him away from you. And this is when Deku, after hearing those words, would pretty much start floating into the air as his eyes would glow an ominous red. And this is when Deku would pretty much proceed to blast the man straight through the chest, as the man would fall down onto the ground, and Deku would then float back to Inko. As it's at this point that apologies for the background noise, but anyways, yeah, Deku would go back into Inko's arms, as people around would just be like, this kid, his quirk. People would just start being like, this kid needs to be put under control. And this is when Inko would look at them, as she would say, no, 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 don't touch my Izuku. She would immediately start trying to fight against it. But this is when government officials would arrive about 1 hour later, as they would pretty much take Deku away from Inko and take him to a facility far, far away. This is when Deku would grow up without a mother and father, and this would leave Deku with a bitter hatred towards the place that he's stuck at. Yeah, he's living lavish. He has anything and everything he could ever want, because they're trying to mold him into being a pro hero. Now, there was one time when Deku was about 9 years old that a government official actually decided to threaten Deku with eliminating his parents or taking away his rights if he's not to become a pro hero. And Deku proceeded to pretty much use his telepathy, as he picked the man up and exploded him in front of the world leaders. As this is when people understood the message: Deku is not going to be controlled. And after he was pretty much 9 years old, this is when they would have pro heroes finally start coming in to try to help train Deku up. The first one that they would call upon is, of course, All Might. And when All Might talks to Deku, Deku actually has some levels of respect for All Might. It's not like he's just gonna sit there and disrespect him, but Deku would ask of one thing from All Might: to spar. All Might would say sure, as this is when they would both get into battle positions. Deku would simply just stand there, as All Might would rush at Deku and throw a thunderous one United States of Smash punch, as it's at this point that Deku would pretty much repel the attack with nothing but his stare. He would look at All Might, as All Might's fist wouldn't be able to inch any closer. And this is when Deku would say, "Ah!" as his aura would explode, causing All Might to get basically thrown out of the building miles away. As All Might would wake up about 2 hours later, he would be like, that kid is not okay. As this is when Deku would basically just be like, I'm pretty much done here. I can control my power. If you don't let me go back to my home, I will obliterate the entire planet. And this is when they're just like, alright, bro, like, you do you, my guy. Deku would pretty much just grab all of his things, and he would fly off to Japan, where Inko basically stays at. When Deku arrives, he would see that Inko is there with a little girl, as Hisashi's no longer there, and Deku's just like, Inko? As it's at this point that Inko would look up at Deku, as she would see the purple hair, the eyes, and she would say, Izuku! She would immediately rush over to him, as a mother knows her child. And Deku would just be staring at the girl that's right there. As Deku would say, did you replace me? Inko would say, no, it just hurts so bad after losing you. And I just needed somebody after your father left me with our second child. As this is when Deku would look, and then he would walk over to his little sister, as he would say, so, I guess you're my little sis, huh? She would basically give him a big smile, as it's nothing but a baby at this point. And Hisashi had just left Inko for another woman, because she ended up getting chubby and all that stuff. And Hisashi didn't really appreciate that too much, so he kind of just said deuces and went for some milk, right? But, you know, this is when Deku, after hearing what Hisashi did, was just like, as he would say, where did you say Hisashi lives at again? As Inko would basically say, oh, your father, you want to see him? He lives here. As it's at this point that Deku would say, thanks, mom. He would pretty much look at the list, as he would then fly over there and immediately bust down Hisashi's door on some Omni-Man type stuff. And this is when Hisashi would be like, Izuku? As he would say, It's been so, bring it in, as this to this point that Deku would not say a single word and blast his X-ray, his little laser eye straight through Hisashi's heart. As it's at this point that Deku would cover up the scene, leave a fake note saying that Hisashi left once again, and pretty much return back to his home with Inko. This is when Deku would basically start catching up with Inko, and Inko's personality would finally start to rub off on Deku just a little bit. His malicious aura would slowly start dying down, and Deku would then become way calmer. At this point, Deku would start basically realizing that, you know, maybe he shouldn't solve every problem by just killing it, as Inko would have taught him some manners. She would have taught him, you know, the basic etiquette of, you know, normal people, and Deku, you know, he's living a pretty good life, right? And this is when summer's around the corner, right? So the school year's about to start, and Inko actually wants Deku to attend school, even though Deku's already pretty much a boy genius because they put him through these courses when he was raised up until the point where he was 9. So now Deku's going to be 10 years old, entering into 5th grade, I believe, 5th or 4th. No, yeah, third or 4th grade. I'm honestly not sure what grade it is, but 3rd or 4th. Apologies if you hear any background noise. My sister's annoying, but yeah. Anyways, Deku would pretty much go to his first day of school. Deku would arrive as he would see a bunch of the other kids, and he would actually be pretty good. All of the other kids would have no real problems with him. Deku would make a couple of friends, and this is when later on in the week, a boy by the name of Katsuki Bakugo would finally arrive into class. And when he comes inside, he would immediately launch an explosion in the air as he would say, "Get out of my seat." He would be looking at Deku's direction. Deku would look at Bakugo as he would say, "What are you talking about, dude? This is my seat." As Bakugo would throw an explosion on Deku's desk, and Deku would just stare up at him as he's like, "What are you doing right now?" This is when Bakugo would pretty much just smack Deku across the face with his hand, and he would say, "You must be deaf, huh, kid? I said, move it!" As he would push Deku out of the way. This is when Deku would fall down to the ground, as Deku would get a little bit of a weird, creepy smile across his face. Deku would say, "Oh, alright." As it's at this point that Deku would look up at Bakugo, as he would pretty much blitz him and grab Bakugo's neck. He would start squishing it, and Bakugo would start pretty much convulsing as he would start gripping on Deku's arm, but Deku would just give him a stare of just literal death, and Bakugo would just be like, "I'm sorry." This is when the teacher would walk into the classroom and say, "Izuku, stop!" And after hearing that, Inko would actually come into the room, as she was pretty much still there, as she had just came and dropped off some lunch for Deku. But this is when she would see what Deku was doing, and she would say, "Izuku, please." As Deku would look at Inko's direction, Inko would pretty much be the only thing that could calm Deku down. Deku would look at her as he would say, "Alright," and he would drop Bakugo down. He was about to kill the man. Like, one more second and Bakugo's head would have literally exploded. That being said, this is when Bakugo would fall to the ground, and he would have he would look at Deku as if he was some sort of monster. He's never been in the presence of this much power. And this is when Bakugo would have a complete gender reverse. Like, instead of feeling like the alpha of the class, Bakugo would now pretty much be down. He would pretty much bitch down to Deku. And if you're wondering why I don't say the actual word, you know, I don't want to get a yellow sign on my video, which will, you know, mess me up in the long run. But yeah, Bakugo bitches down to Deku, and yeah, it's a pretty good stuff, right? Pretty good stuff. You know, we have Deku growing up. He would actually end up being a little feared for the next couple of months, but people would then start realizing that literally all you have to do to be friends with Deku is not piss him off. Because if you do that, your career's over, bro. People remember what happened to Bakugo, and ever since then, nobody has tried to test him. Apart from people from other schools that think that those were just like lies, you know, Bakugo's probably just weak. So a couple of times, Deku's actually had to deal with some kids that don't believe in Deku's strength. And so Deku had to teach them some manners. So Deku has definitely beat up a couple of extra kids, and Deku would have gotten a little mellowed out to the point where he's more along the lines of Dragon Ball Super Frieza by the time that middle school rolls around and the day of the sludge villain comes around, right? Deku would be in class. He'd be one of the people in the front. He'd be flirting it up with one of the girls. Her name would be whatever you guys want. And this is when Deku would pretty much see the teacher walk inside. Deku would immediately start getting quiet, and everybody else would as well, as the teacher would look at them and say, alright class, I know that usually this is the point where I give you guys career aptitude tests. However, he would look at them and say, I know you all want to become heroes! As he would throw the papers up in the air, everybody would start flashing off their quirks, feeling pretty excited. You know, they're all feeling good about themselves. Deku would not say a word but smirk, and the people in the classroom would say, well, Deku's clearly going to make it as a hero. Bakugo would be told that, oh yeah, he's going to UA, and this is when Deku would give Bakugo a little bit of a stare that's just saying, yo, you apply, I kill you. Bakugo would pretty much be like, I mean, I was going to go to UA, but I mean, I kind of changed my mind. As at this point, Deku would smirk, and he would then basically continue going on with the rest of the class. As, yeah, Deku, he's kind of a little bit of a Bakugo personality now. Like, nobody tests Deku whatsoever. Deku is raging of alpha mentality. And so Deku pretty much ends up walking home after school, as he of course encounters the sludge villain. However, when the sludge villain is on some give me your body kid, Deku does not play. He eradicates the sludge villain on sight. It's on sight with Deku. If you mess with him even a little bit, Deku will eradicate you from existence. And that's exactly what it does to the sludge villain. As All Might comes out of the tunnel, sees Deku, and is just like, kid, I haven't seen you in such a long time. How have you been? As Deku would look at him and say, you know me, All Might. I've been chilling. All Might's just like, that's good, that's good. And Deku would then say, so what's up? How that hero life treating you? All Might would then just be like, well, you know, the usual. And this is when Deku would pretty much begin to talk to All Might a little bit, as All Might would then ask Deku if he's willing to hear him out for a certain proposal. Deku would say sure he is, as he would say, I mean, you're welcome to come over for dinner if you want. As All Might would say, oh really? I mean, I'd be delighted. But he would say, could I come over in about 2 hours? As Deku would say, I mean, I don't see why not. All Might would pretty much get out of there, as he would pretty much go into a Small Might form for about 2 hours, and this one he would get dressed and buff up, as he would arrive at Deku's house for some dinner. Inko, Deku, and All Might would be having dinner, and Inko would just be like, oh my god, All Might is here. She would just be so like shocked, just on some like, I can't believe the #1 hero and my son are both here for dinner. This is insane. This is when All Might would begin to pretty much start proposing the idea of one for all to Deku. And with Inko even being at the table, he would even say it to Inko as well. Inko would immediately tell Izuku that he should definitely accept the power. And this is when Deku would say, I refuse. All Might would just be like, what do you mean you refuse? Deku would say, I refuse. I don't need this power. I mean, sure, it'd be good and all, but do I really need it? I promise you, All Might, if I wanted to, I could destroy a mountain, this entire planet, if I so pleased it, with nothing but a finger. Now imagine what would happen if this vessel that I have was to get overflown with more power. The glass would break and I would overflow. The world itself could be in danger. You know, I kind of like this world. It's kind of grown on me. So I prefer not to get one for all. However, I know somebody who may be willing to take it. As Deku would look at All Might would say, what's his name? As Deku would say, oh, it's not a him, it's a her. As this is when Deku would look at All Might and say, but I'll tell you about that on another day. All Might would look at Deku as he would say, alright. As it's at this point that the girl that Deku's pretty much been flirting it up with for the longest time would pretty much get a text from Deku saying, hey, you want your quirk to get more powerful? And she would say, sure thing. And Deku would then basically be like, all right, for sure, pull up to my crib. As she would, you know, she'd come through. And this is when Deku would pretty much proceed to just start telling her about things. And she would say, wait, so my quirk can get even more powerful? Deku would say, I mean, yeah, as her quirk, in case many of you guys are wondering, is pretty much the ability to use her anger to her advantage. So the angrier she gets, the stronger she gets. Something, no, that's a whack quirk. That's a whack. She has a barrier quirk, right? Her quirk basically allows her to create powerful barriers similar to Arlo from Unordinary, in case any of you guys have actually seen that series. And yeah, this is basically when Deku would look at her as he would say, so, you down or you down? As she would look at him and say, it's so much responsibility. I'd be the successor for one for all. Deku would look at her as he would say, yeah, and you'd also actually be able to make it to UA. That weak barrier quirk that you have won't be enough, but with this, I promise you, you can make it in. As she would look at him, she'd pretty much go in for a hug. Deku would basically accept it, and this is when she would start basically getting all excited. As Deku would say, now, you probably still gotta train for it. As she would say, oh, yeah, right. And this is when the 10-month would pretty much commence. She would begin training to finally acquire One For All. And guys, I am going to be asking you guys for a favor for the next part of What If Deku Was Frieza's Reincarnation. I'm going to be needing you guys to pick a name for this character that Deku is going to be with. In terms of what she looks like, I'm going to be saying that she has brown hair. She has like brown, dark brown hair, right? It's wavy, it's like curly-ish. She has hazel eyes. She stands at about 5'4". Let's see. She has the barrier quirk. And yeah, that's basically the only description I can give. Actually, no, I think I have the perfect name. Never mind, scratch the thing where I was like, you guys need to give a name. Yeah, the name for this person is going to be Luna, right? Deku's little ship in this version of events is going to be Luna, and it's an OC. It's an original character that I pretty much created off top, seeing as this entire What If was pretty much off top completely. I didn't like take any inspo from any of my other videos. I just kind of talked, and it actually felt pretty good. I might do this for the second part, might not, who knows. But yeah, that basically is going to be concluding everything for today's video. I will not be talking about my sponsors on today's video, seeing as, you know, I wanted to kind of primarily focus on the video. So yeah, sponsors on probably the next video. But yeah, that being said, boys, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.